So Sagar and I brought you recently the news that a whistleblower who had previously worked at OpenAI, who had raised concerns about the way that they may be potentially violating patent and trademark agreements, that whistleblower had been found dead. Now, authorities deemed it a suicide, but now we have the parents of that whistleblower, whose name was Suchir Balaji, raising questions and saying that they are going to hire a private investigator in order to try to get to the bottom of what really happened here. Let's take a listen to a part of their press conference.
Last person to talk to him, he was happy mood. He's not depressed or anything. And it was his birthday week.
He made plans of going to CES in January. That was the last phone conversation he had with anyone. He went into his apartment, he never came out. There was no suicide note left. And there is nobody else in the scene. That doesn't mean they can just come to conclusion. And we have seen the bloodshots in the bathroom, signs of fight in the bathroom.
Vigil organizers say they're honoring Balaji's bravery and raising awareness to corporate accountability in artificial intelligence.
So there you go. Obviously, I mean, AI is the highest stakes game that exists in the world right now. The amount of resources, government and corporate resources, that are being poured into AI development is, we genuinely don't even know how much money is going into this. There is an arms race going on right now to develop AI. Some of this is public, like the war between Sam Altman and Elon Musk. Some of it is not public. Peter Thiel has funded a number of stealth companies. You've got DARPA, which is a secretive agency within the US government that is funding research and development. Israel, China, like the list goes on of actors and interested participants here. So the amount of money at stake here is truly mind-blowing. I mean, probably sums that we've never seen in history. It's not an exaggeration. Just to give you a sense of some of what he was sounding the alarm over, and in particular, we were talking about the New York Times, in particular was featured in a New York Times story raising concerns about what he had seen when he was at OpenAI. He elaborated on that interview in this post. He said, I recently participated in a New York Times story about fair use and generative AI and why I'm skeptical that fair use would be a plausible defense for a lot of generative AI products. I also wrote a blog post about the nitty-gritty details of fair use and why I believe this. To give some context, I was at OpenAI for nearly 4 years, worked on ChatGPT for the last 1.5 of them. I initially didn't know much about copyright, fair use, etc., but became curious after seeing all the lawsuits filed against Gen AI companies. When I tried to understand the issue better, I eventually came to the conclusion that fair use seems like a pretty implausible defense of a lot of generative AI products for the basic reason that they can create substitutes that compete with the data they're trained on. I've written up the more detailed reasons for why I believe this in my post. Obviously, I'm not a lawyer, but I still feel like it's important for even non-lawyers to understand the law, both the letter of it and also why it's actually there in the first place. That being said, I don't want this to read as a critique of ChatGPT or OpenAI per se, because fair use and generative AI is a much broader issue than any one product or company. I highly encourage ML researchers to learn more about copyright. It is a really important topic and precedent that's often cited, like Google Books isn't actually as supportive as it might seem. Feel free to get in touch about this if you'd like to chat about fair use, ML, or copyright. And this is a central issue he's touching on here, Emily, because all of these large language learning models, all of them are trained on whatever data they can gobble up. And this is one of the critical components in how they learn and are able to, produce the products like ChatGPT and other products that we're all now able to use. And so we're talking books, we're talking transcripts of YouTube videos, we're talking literally anything they can get their hands on. And without that data, they're unable to train these LLMs and push them out into the world. So this is not a side issue. This is, alongside like having sufficient, electricity and having the computational power. These are the key ingredients for the development of AI. And, he was outspoken on it. And now his parents who, listen, these are grieving parents who I'm sure nobody wants to think that their son or daughter was so unhappy as to commit suicide and to end their own life. So, we always have to keep that in mind. But it's worth taking seriously, this investigation, simply because this is one of a, relatively small number of whistleblowers who we've seen who said, what is being done here is wrong, and I'm not going to be associated with it.
It determines whether AI is built on a house of sand or like a really well-built foundation. AI can be a house of cards if their fair use argument is erupted. And whether that's legally or in the court of public opinion, generative AI LLMs will be a house of sand if they can't defend their fair use practices. So obviously what he was doing was very high stakes. And a notable point from his parents there, they say there was no note. And also they believe what they saw was a sign of struggle. So the police obviously ruled this, as you mentioned, Krystal, suicide. But if the parents are saying the police ruled it a suicide despite there being signs of a struggle, that's, I think, something that just in the investigation stage, people will be looking at very closely, and we will be looking at very closely if there are serious signs of struggle that still resulted in the investigation being concluded as a suicide. That's a hugely significant piece of information from the parents.
Yeah, and I'd be remiss if I didn't note that there were 2 Boeing whistleblowers who were found dead and was also deemed suicide. And in one of those instances in particular, and, same thing, friends and family said, he seemed fine. No indication of depression, no indication of, anything that would lead directly to him taking his own life. Authorities deemed it a suicide. That's where things stand as of now. But this is one we'll definitely keep our eyes on.
And just one more point about Balaji's last post. He was actively soliciting information. So that's just something to keep in mind. That last post where he's saying, get in touch with me. I want to hear your thoughts. That's a sort of active process of learning more, coming to different conclusions to undermine the sort of the foundation really of LLMs. So you can see where that would be of interest to people who have a lot of interest in those LLMs.
Yeah, and just to tie this whole conversation, zooming out from this whistleblower back to what we were talking about with Elon and Trump and David Sachs and all these people, like the H-1B fight is a sideshow to the main event, which is AI development. The resources that are being thrown into this truly arms race, both between nation states and between corporations, to be, the furthest ahead in AI, to achieve what's called AGI, artificial general intelligence, to be the first to develop that. This is all going on. Some of it is, you can read about in the press, but there is not nearly enough media coverage, democratic debate, transparency about what the plans are for this technology, how it will be deployed in our lives, what that will look like, how it will upend the labor force. We're talking about, potentially greater than Industrial Revolution level change over a much shorter period of time. That's the real undercurrent of the political games that are being played right now and the political moves that are being made. Obviously, Elon Musk is a big player in that. Sam Altman of OpenAI, a big player in that. Noteworthy to me that after Trump wins, Sam comes in and is like, let me give $1 million to your inauguration, right? Yep. They have so much at stake here.
Zuckerberg as well.
Zuckerberg as well. All of the big tech players massively invested and betting on this AI future. And partly because, ChatGPT, it's fun and seems harmless and I use it and whatever. It's hard to wrap your head around the scale of potential, incredible disruption that we could be facing, and even darker scenarios that, are truly dystopian, that if I, lay them out right now, you're going to think I sound like a crazy person, but that AI researchers take very seriously as a possibility. Mm-hmm. This is all happening effectively behind closed doors with a few comparatively small number of scientists and technologists who are making these decisions that could completely upend all of our lives. And so, this incident with this whistleblower is just a tiny window into the stakes of this game and how much is happening and how consequential it could be. It truly is like the biggest and most existential political question of our time. And it's not being treated or debated that way. So I mentioned before, like, I'm trying to learn as much as I possibly can because I do think that the stakes are potentially that high and that significant. And like I said, this is just like one little window into some of the concerns about AI and the way that it could transform our entire economy.
I mean, yeah, this story, even just the fate of Balaji himself, there's a lot more to be learned about that, given what we just saw from the parents, basically the commitment and the commitment to the idea that this is not what he would have done. So much more to come.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.